This is Dan Dicks here reporting for Press for Truth, and viewers of this channel may recall that over the past few years I've been reporting on this mysterious neurological brain disorder that is of an unknown origin in New Brunswick. A few years ago I was showing you articles like this one, Mystery Brain Disorder Baffles Canadian Doctors, Spasms, Memory Loss, and Hallucinations are among some of the symptoms. The mysterious brain disease affects dozens of Canadians, causing teeth chattering and hallucinations. You may recall this one, mysterious brain disorder strikes hundreds and cases are increasing. Well, that caused the province of New Brunswick to put out this official website, Potential Neurological Syndrome, the investigation of a cluster of a potential neurological syndrome of unknown cause in New Brunswick, where they say the Public Health New Brunswick has been investigating a potential neurological syndrome of unknown cause that was suspected of affecting some residents of New Brunswick. An oversight committee reviewing the case files of all 48 of the potential cases found that the patients didn't have symptoms in common or have a shared common illness. A separate in-depth epidemiological investigation last fall concluded that the patients didn't have any common behaviors, foods, or environmental exposures. Following these reports, all the patients were excluded from the cluster, and the Ministry of Health has accepted the conclusion that no such neurological syndrome of unknown cause exists in New Brunswick. This is their final report into the investigation and the potential neurological syndromes of unknown cause. And guess what, folks? They say there is no mystery neurological illness the committee has found. Canadian investigators find no cluster of neurodegenerative syndrome. This obviously has a lot of these patients and families upset. They're calling on New Brunswick to reopen this investigation into this obvious neurological illness. New Brunswick residents are suffering from a mystery brain disease, are calling for fresh investigations. You've got this Moncton medical student calling for a new investigation into this mysterious neurological illness. Well, not only has this new investigation not happened, but on top of that, folks, some of the scientists who have been trying to get to the bottom of this are being silenced. In fact, one of them, the scientist working on this mysterious NB brain condition, claimed that he has been cut off from doing so for political reasons. In fact, his leaked email into this mysterious brain disease investigation in New Brunswick prompted a 5,000% spike in searches and more health questions coming from Canadians, and rightly so. So in this video, guys, we're going to take a close look at their findings and this mysterious brain disease that's been going on for years now, not to mention the scientist who is being silenced for trying to get to the bottom of this, guys. We're going to cover all of this and much more in this video, but really quickly, just before we do, I'd ask that you check me out here at pressfortruth.ca/donate if you appreciate my efforts to bring you this info. Here you can do a one-time donation with PayPal. You can do Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. You can sign up for a monthly reoccurring contribution by clicking there or by clicking here on Subscribestar. $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever is within your means is very greatly appreciated, guys. You can also send an e-transfer to dan@pressfortruth.ca, or if you like to keep things old school, guys, you can send stuff to my P.O. box. Links for all of this are located in the description below. Thank you so much to everyone who takes 1 minute to support my efforts here at Press for Truth. All right, guys, as I said, 3 years ago now, this stuff was all kind of just coming out. Doctors in Canada are concerned that they could be dealing with the previously unknown brain disease amid a string of cases involving memory loss, hallucinations, and muscle atrophy. Politicians in the province of New Brunswick have demanded answers, but with so few cases, experts say there are far more questions than answers, and they've urged the public not to panic. For more than a year, public health officials have been tracking a cluster of 43 cases of suspected neurological disease in the province with no known cause. The mysterious brain disease was causing apparently teeth chattering and hallucinations amongst a whole other number of issues, with hundreds of cases popping up, with those increasing. So they ended up putting together this final conclusive report, essentially calling this off as a big fat nothing burger. Nothing to see here, ladies and gentlemen. There is no neurological illness. There is no problem. Just continue going on about your day. Well, obviously, this is, as I said, upset a lot of these patients and families of the patients who are currently dealing with this. Well, if you didn't think it was bad enough that they're not looking into this any further, well, again, check out what they've been doing to this scientist, who he says has been cut off for political reasons, for trying to get to the bottom of what's been going on here. A leading federal scientist claimed that he wasn't allowed to keep investigating a mystery neurological illness that made dozens of people sick in New Brunswick, according to an email obtained by CBC News. Dr. Michael Coulthart, who is the head of the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease surveillance system, wrote last October that he had been essentially cut off from working on the file at the public health level for reasons that he could only discern to be political. He said that he was worried that there were more than 200 people experiencing unexplained neurological decline. And it's interesting that all of this popped up in the last 3 or 4 years, when some other interesting things started happening around that time. And I don't know about you guys, but I personally know 2 people who in the last 4 years suffered from neurological issues. One of those people ended up eventually having a full recovery, and the other person did not recover whatsoever and had the fatal demise of eventually dying from this. I don't know about you, but I'm not the only one. I know a lot of people who over the past 4 years have also known people who have developed strange, mysterious neurological disorders. If you happen to have experienced this well, or you know a family member or a friend who has suffered from these things over the last 4 years, let me know in the comment section below, and go check out the comment section below yourself, and I think you'll see a common thread here. I'm not the only one. I'm sure there are a lot of others out there too who have discovered this, and that's why when this guy discovered that, we're not talking about 48 in a small cluster, he discovered hundreds are having this issue, and he was essentially politically cut off. He says, all I will say is that my scientific opinion here is that there is something real going on in New Brunswick that absolutely cannot be explained by a bias or personal agenda of an individual neurologist. Microbiologist Coulthart wrote in October. A few cases might be best explained by the latter, but there are just too many, now over 200. Coulthart did not respond to requests from comment, but he forwarded his email inquiry to the Public Health Agency of Canada Media Relations team. Now, the agency declined any kind of an interview, but they said that he was initially contacted and called in to investigate this because he specialized in Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or CJD. This is an exceedingly rare and deadly brain condition caused by brain proteins misfolding into abnormal form. And again, I will remind you, it's interesting that we're dealing with proteins when, in the last 4 years, we've had the introduction of a global inoculation program dealing with experimental mRNA technology that would involve injecting proteins into the system. I don't know if this is just coincidental timing or if there's something else going on here, guys, but it is interesting that brain proteins were the reason why this guy was brought in, and he is the one who is now systematically being silenced. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is Dr. Coulthart's area of expertise and work at the agency, so once this disease was ruled out, he was no longer involved in the issue, they said. The email is the latest criticism of what patients and families have described as an unclear, inadequate response to a very real public health issue. Despite the province having closed its investigation more than 2 years ago, people affected by the illness have continued for years to push for more testing, particularly to determine whether or not environmental causes might explain their symptoms. And obviously, at this stage in the game, we are being poisoned by the food that we are eating. We are being poisoned by the toxins in the air, poisoned by the water that we're drinking. So certainly environmental factors could be a clue here. But I think it's important to continue to look into these major changes that happened over the last 4 years that most doctors and scientists tend to just brush off and won't even dare question in the first place. You know, I knew a guy who, you know, in 2021, I think it was suffering from neurological issues. It led to the point of him going deaf in one ear. And I knew that he took this experimental mRNA technology when everybody else was, being essentially forced to do so. So I asked him, did you ask your doctor if it's possible that the experimental mRNA technology that you experimented with might have led to this neurological issue and you going deaf in one ear? And he got so offended by the question. He said, Dan, I knew you would suggest such a thing. Of course I didn't go there with my doctor. No, I didn't inquire as to whether or not the COVID-1984 vaccine was a cause of this. There is a cognitive dissonance going on in the minds of the masses where they've been conditioned to just close off this question as ridiculous conspiracy theory. Well, thankfully, now, in 2024, more and more of this information is coming out. Guys like Dr. Fauci are practically being put on trial, and rightly so, as more and more information comes out that we discover that these experimental mRNA technology injections are turning out to be the major causes of all these things we've been seeing over the last 4 years. And I think this is why people who are starting to get closer and closer to that truth are systematically being silenced. Politicians leaped to say nothing was going on here, this scientist says. And again, I think that's because of the strong cognitive dissonance that is going on in their minds. In his email, he said his strong hypothesis is that there is some environmental exposure, or perhaps a combination of exposures, that is triggering and or accelerating a variety of neurodegenerative symptoms in people who are already predispositioned to different protein misfolding conditions, which include Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and Huntington's disease. The email said this kind of phenomenon does not easily fit within the shallow classification paradigms of diagnostic pathology, which has created a loophole through which the politicians have eagerly leaped to conclude that nothing coherent here is going on. Nothing to see here, folks. Just look the other way. The health ministry in New Brunswick first warned the public about a possible unknown neurological brain disorder in early 2021. Gee, what else was going on in early 2021 other than a massive global inoculation experimental program? After more than 40 people were found to have been suffering from a condition with similar symptoms to CJD. For some patients who range from age 18 to 85, check out what these symptoms included, guys. Painful muscle spasms, visual and auditory hallucinations, memory loss, and personality changes. To me, visual, auditory hallucinations, memory loss, and personality changes doesn't necessarily sound like it's coming from something as, an external environmental factor like food, air, and or the water that they're drinking. This sounds to me to be more like something that has been introduced into the system that would cause these kinds of symptoms: personality changes, hallucinations, memory loss. It begins with muscle pain, and for some, progressed to debilitating dementia. Coulthart was part of a nationwide working group that the Public Health Agency of Canada pulled together in January of 2021 to support New Brunswick in this investigation, but the collaboration was only up and running for a few months before the province changed direction and created its own independent oversight committee that spring. Gee, imagine that. And guess who are the ones who came up with this final report concluding there's nothing to see here? Yes, it's their own private committee. Essentially, they're investigating themselves. The province's review included the 48 cluster patients that had been identified in April 2021, but new referrals continue to come in. But the documents show they were not added to the original cluster, and so they were not included in the committee's work. Not only that, but the Public Health Agency of Canada didn't even analyze the case files. Federal Health Minister Mark Holland declined an interview to talk about this. In a statement with New Brunswick's Health Department, he said he did not hinder any research into this area of study. However, the committee concluded there was no mystery neurological syndrome, that the patients in the original cluster had potentially been misdiagnosed, they say. The final report marked the end of this investigation. But the Oversight Committee has unanimously agreed that these 48 people should never have been identified of having neurological symptoms of unknown cases based on the evidence reviewed, that no such syndrome exists. But look at this. The report casts doubt on the work of the doctor who was, sidelined from this investigation after identifying 46 of the 48 patients. Last year, the Public Health Agency of Canada sent epidemiologists to help him complete his required paperwork on the patients, though the agency noted it had not analyzed those files because the province, which is the lead on the case, didn't ask them to do so. So of these cases, they didn't analyze any of the specific case files because they say the province, who was the lead on this, simply just didn't ask them to do so. So they didn't even look at it. PHAC continues to maintain an open dialogue with PHNB and remains ready to discuss additional supports if requested. Coulthart wrote in his email that a little more than 18 months after the province's investigation ended, that's when he's trying to, get this out there. In closing, he wrote, "I believe the truth will assert itself in time, but for now, all we can do is continue to collect information on the cases that come to us." Several lines have been redacted from the copy of the email obtained by CDC as the names of the recipients. So 18 months after they officially declared this to be a big fat nothing burger, you got this guy who specializes in misfolding brain proteins looking into this, saying that he is systematically being silenced. His leak emails show that they don't want him looking into this no longer for, as he puts it, political reasons. I will remind you once again, guys, that all of this is kind of surfacing only in the last 4 years in the midst of this experimental mRNA technology in the global inoculation program. And I'll remind you, right now they're already talking about the next, pandemic, essentially, with this bird flu H5, H1N5, H2, whatever they're going to call it. There's going to be, more of them coming out. They say this one guy just died in Mexico. It looks like they're starting to get their ducks in a line to go for this one more time, the global push on this global inoculation program to get those last few remaining stragglers who held out. And guys, if you are in that camp, I want to say congratulations for being on the right side of history. More and more information is starting to come out that would show that you made the right decision. And I hope you will continue to do your due diligence moving forward as they continue to, try to brainwash and condition everybody into going along with this global inoculation program. But as we're starting to see, more and more problems are coming out of this. And they've concluded here there's nothing to see here. It's just a big fat nothing burger. But the patients and family members would disagree, and so would I, guys. So just wanted to bring it to your attention that this one scientist in particular seems to be being silenced over his research into this They've concluded it's a big nothing burger, but obviously something bizarre is going on here. I don't think this experimental mRNA technology can be trusted, especially when we're dealing with spike proteins, and this new neurological disease itself deals with brain proteins that misfold. Just wanted to bring all that to your attention, guys. If you do appreciate my efforts to do so, don't forget to check me out here at pressfortruth.ca/donate. You can check that top link in the description below. And that's all for today, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to share this video, click that thumbs up button, and stay tuned, guys. We're going to have more video reports coming soon, God willing. This is Dan Dicks reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.